All right then. So, all right, Angeline, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So here we go. I'm going to start the recording in three, in two, and one. Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we speak about critical issues in the blindness community and all other issues from across the universe and galaxy. Today, we have the distinct honor and privilege to be joined by Angeline Akai. She joins us all the way from across the ocean, all the way from the east coast of Africa, all the way in Kenya. I understand, as I remember, that you have quite the story of advocacy. You do a lot with advocacy and education, and you do a lot to help people who are blind or have other abilities in Kenya. So, what I want to know, for one, is who is Angelina Kai? So, I want you to walk through the life story over the next hour and really educate us all about the truth and the brutal reality, and the good, the bad, and the ugly about your entire, the whole situation in Kenya, because I really want to learn from you, and so does our audience. You have an hour, and I will interject as I need to help you to tell your story. But Angeline, you have the microphone. Go right ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Aaron, for giving me this opportunity. I would not start by, I have to thank you for this opportunity. I'm very humbled and honored to be in your show. My name is Angeline. Forgive me, I have a kind of a cold, but I'll be fine. My name is Angeline or Akai. I was born many years ago and in this beautiful country called Kenya. And at the age of 3, I lost my sight and I was declared, totally blind due to measles at the age of 3. So, yeah, I come from a very humble background and, and very, I can say, in your show, probably we come from a very God-fearing background and a respectable background and also a humble background. So the three, we, I grew up as a very, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes.
Oh, great. So growing up, it has never been easy, coming from a humble background where and disability is interlinked with poverty sometimes. So getting the basic needs, basic requirements, even education, poses a challenge. But luckily, I was fortunate enough to get the support of well-wishers who really supported my education from childhood to university level. And that really fueled my desire to, get into advocacy and, create that enabling space for the upcoming generation so that they can, the barriers are eliminated and they're able to, get their full potentials with ease. Unlike those of us who have really had to go through a lot to, make it in life. So, that's a very brief about me, but I'm sure as we move forward, you have any questions, Aaron. I'm very much willing to answer them as we go.
Absolutely. Well, let's build up the conversation from let's start at your family level, because before a child goes to schooling, they of course are with their family, with their parents. So in Kenyan society, when you were born, how, or when you were growing up, how does the family unit approach blindness? And then when you went to schooling, what can you tell me about the school system and how the education system is structured? And then how did you pave your way into university over there? Because I don't think, I mean, of course I believe you. I know you went to university, but I don't think that was necessarily the easiest thing to get into in a society like Kenya, perhaps. So how did you bridge that gap and what can you tell me about all of that?
Thank you. In the African culture, really, there are a lot of myths that are connected with disability. For one, some other African cultures, I believe, is most African cultures, they believe either disability is a curse, or disability is a blessing, or disability is, it comes because you have committed some, things that abominations, they call it, things that are taboos. So having brought up in the African culture, so our family or my parents would be mocked and told, you have someone who cannot see, your child cannot see, could you have done something wrong? What have you done to to raise or to give birth to a child that has a disability? Or what happened that she lost her sight and she was okay? So those are some of the things that really I'm sure for our parents in Africa to be able to, accept that, it really takes a lot of energy, effort, and, a high level of goodwill to overcome such a stigma that comes from this community or the society as a whole. Um, so I believe my parents were one of the strong parents that had to endure such criticism and stigmatization, and so they raised me up, and of course with support from organization and well-wishers that were exposed, that they knew that this child, despite her being blind, she's capable of, being someone in future, and supporting the community, including people that have no disability. So that's how I was taken through education. In my primary education, I went through both the integrated setup and the special school. So in my early childhood, from say class 1 or grade 1 to around 5, I was in an integrated setup. Then from class 5 to class 8, now that is late primary school, I happened to go to senior primary in a special school comprised of blind learners who are blind and visually impaired. So I experienced both the integrated and the special school setup. And it was, of course, a very good experience for me. And at the same time, there were plenty of barriers, when teachers would really work hard, ensure that they teach you alongside learners without, disabilities, or learners who are sighted, and they're not trained to do that. It really takes a lot of effort. So they really tried. And of course, there were other issues that we were experiencing in terms of resources, in terms of getting accessible materials that a learner with visually impaired would be able to navigate around through their studies. That was a big of a challenge. So I mostly relied on sighted friends then to supporting me, reading for me, and things like that. Yeah, what I learned is that the sighted, especially children, are very much accommodative when it comes to issues of people with disabilities. Children are very accommodative. That's what I learned while growing up. Then in special schools, that was a bit easier, but of course, also we were in a segregated. We were there alone with learners who are visually impaired, like myself, and excuse me. And again, of course, the issues around resources and materials, they were readily available by then. So we also relying on learners who are low vision and who are able to read, printed materials to support us through education in the whole process. In high school, I went to an integrated school. All that time, like I said, the barriers in in schools for a learner who is visually blind or visually impaired are just there. The resources, the materials, the funding. I mean, some learners would not come to school, not because they don't want school, but because their parents are not able to take care of the children. It's because probably they come from a humble background and they don't get the support that they require from well wishers like I happen to have gotten, or the government or any other parties that would come into supporting them. So yeah, it was we were going to be able we would be able to be supported by the sighted, the low vision in high school and even university level. So it was we really had to put our foot together, energy in terms of just ensuring that you get the best in education and you perform alongside the learners without disabilities, and then you ensure that you pass, you prove to the community or society that you're able to, despite the challenges that you're facing in your day-to-day life. So and your other question was how what was your other question
Of course.
about
Sure
sorry,
thing.
other
Sure.
questions?
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful response, of course. Yeah. So then, okay. So then after all of these, all of your sighted friends or low vision friends, or oh, after all of these good friends, and I think I picked up on it. And so did the listeners at home. You really honed in on what you needed to do, which is a very, very wise life lesson. But after all of these friends helped you in life, how did you matriculate to the university? I'm sure Kenya has a matriculation that someone would have to take, correct, to get into a university there, right?
Yes.
How does that work?
um
Hmm.
yeah, I passed well in my high school, and that's how I got to go to university and did studied education. So not special education, but education in general.
Hmm.
So my passing really took me to the high levels of education. um, the effort that I put in place, and of course by being supported by friends and all that, I managed to do my education. Then after finished studying education, that's how I found myself in the activism world. Yeah.
All right. All right. So, if someone after someone studies education in Kenya, what are some of the, career fields? Could you have gone and taught as a professor, or could you have been a teacher teaching children? I mean, what types? I mean, education, as you know, is
It's broad.
it's a super broad word. It's almost like
Yeah,
saying
right.
by just saying you studied education, I would still say,
Oh yeah.
what did you study? Because there are
Yeah.
people who study education and they never enter a school. You can do a lot. So in
Yeah,
Kenyan
sure.
society, where does someone usually end up when they study education? Hmm.
Um, People end up. Apologies, I should have been more
It's
specific.
fine. No worries. No worries at
So,
all.
in Kenya, you could do primary level education. You could teach learners, small children, primary level, or you could specialize in teaching high school, or even you could be a lecturer in university, of course. But for me, I did high school. Did high school education. To be more specific, also I studied history and religious education.
Oh, I love history.
So
I love talking about this. I love history. I
yeah,
love talk. Oh boy, you're gonna have we have a lot in common. Wow.
right. So that's what I studied.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So fortunately, for me, I loved
Hmm.
education and all, but I felt like I am really more needed in creating the change that I require. Really more needed in ensuring that people with disability get the best. The future, those who are upcoming, people with disability, the children that are young ones right now deserve the best that we're not able to get. So that really fueled my desire, and yeah, I quit education to be the agent of change.
So you say that you wanted to make the change in Kenya,
Yes.
right? You say the change, which means that there was a specific thing that you knew needed to be changed in Kenyan society for people with disabilities. So let's really break
Yes.
down the ingredients. What did you see needed to be changed? How did you change it? What was the effect?
Um, yeah, when I introduced myself, I said that I identify as a disability rights advocate, and I am committed or even dedicated to creating a barrier-free society where persons with disabilities get the best, where persons with disabilities actualize their potentials in the best way they can, where the society will view disability as a diversity that needs to be celebrated. So that change that I require is to eliminate those barriers. What are these barriers? Barriers are very broad in terms of accessibility, in terms of getting the best, in terms of education, in terms of ensuring that their voices are heard, that they're not left at the margins, they're at the center of all discussions. There are those, we have organizations in Kenya, we have government, we have county governments, but how are they involving these people when they come up with decisions, or they just make decisions thinking that these decisions will affect positively these people instead of including them on the table when they're doing the discussions. So those are the changes that I need to see in terms of accessibility. Are they part of issues that really affect them? Are they able to navigate when they want to seek for services, for example? Do they get the legal advice or support when they seek for them? Are they educated? The major component of the society's growth is education. Is everyone, including learners with people with disability, are they able to get this education? Are they supported? Um, in Kenya, we have those challenges that a group of people or a person, and as an individual can come together, to just push for those changes. So I believe that I am not alone in this in this championing for inclusion. We are with very many people, including organizations of persons with disabilities here in Kenya, that really are pushing for example policies. We are pushing for legislations in the governments. We are pushing for um, awareness creation to ensure that people with disabilities are brought to the forefront. Their issues are dealt with, and they're not just dealt with, but the persons with disabilities are part of the discussions, implementations, and all other aspects that really affects them. Yeah.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That's so important. Absolutely. To include people and to include people in the right way too. That's another subtle thing is that you can
Yeah.
include people with disabilities in the wrong way, which is oftentimes what
Right.
happens. And then they would say, well, we included you. Well, that was the wrong way to be included. So there's a right way and a wrong way. So yes,
Absolutely.
you describe you call yourself a disability rights advocate, which means that I have to ask you. So, and of course,
Mhm.
I know what the answer is, but we have to break it down even further. So,
Right.
how do you really view rights? I mean, what are people's rights? I mean, that's another very general, that's a big sweeping generalization. What rights do people and should people actually have to be included in society in the right way? So, what do you really think?
For me, I believe rights is rights. Um, rights is any person is should experience or should really enjoy their human rights and fundamentals of freedom. Every human being, and no right should infringe on the other person's right. Um, for me, I believe that persons with disabilities, for example, are not. We don't require any other different that is special rights from the other. From the other human beings. We all have rights, and all rights should be respected, irrespective of your race, color, disability, and all that. And so, um, unfortunately, we have rights that really infringe on people with disabilities. And that's why we keep on saying that, every human being has that right, and no one should be, denied their rights based on their disability. For example, right to education. Every child has a right to education. But for example, parents would say, let me give priority first to my child who has no disability. And if I am left with other funds or other resources, I will, of course, take this other child, my child with disability. But the priority is my child without disability. So that's infringing on one's rights, taking that right from this person and giving this other person right. Of course, it's not bad. That person has the other child without disability gets educated, which is not bad. But of course, you should not say that this other child should not be able to go through education because of their disability. So I believe right is right, and everyone should enjoy their human rights and fundamental freedom on an equal basis as others, everyone, including people with disabilities.
Right. You're very correct. You're very correct. It's almost like an economic issue when you really stop and think about it. And I'm sure you've studied economics, and I'm sure you appreciate that study. It can be very, very fun and very interesting to speak about the economy. When just to, as we like to say around the podcast in here in the Aaron's Opinion family, just to play devil's advocate without being the devil. A family with two children in Kenya could say, well, let's say they would tell their sighted child who does not have any disability, they could say, well, we're going to send you to school, right? That's also reasonable. That's just as reasonable to educate a sighted child because they're sighted as it is reasonable to educate a blind child because the blind child still needs to be educated. It's reasonable to educate both children. The problem, in my opinion, or I may be, and I may be ignorant to this, and if I am, please educate me. But perhaps the reason is, of course, the social thing and what the parents think and the stigma. That's a huge part. But perhaps in Kenyan society, perhaps there are truly not enough resources to educate all people, whether they are disabled or not. I mean, what can you speak on that? Because take it this way. Another way to look at it is, well, a sighted sibling, if there's two brothers and one is sighted and one is blind, and they decide to send the blind child to a school, and then they tell the sighted guy, well, we aren't going to educate you because we had to educate your blind brother. Well, that's also a wrong. That's also a fundamental wrong to not educate two people. But
Yeah.
but really, it's about the resources. It's not, I mean, it is about the people. I'm not denying it. It is about the stigma, absolutely. But really, it's about the resources in Kenya. So how does that really work when you think about, who truly gets the education and who truly gets the resources? How does that really work in Kenyan society?
In the past, it was hard, honestly, but when we our constitution now, we have now a new constitution. It's not that new. It's from a 2020 2010 constitution that really protects everyone in terms of, gives resources to people, to everyone, including people with disabilities, and giving capacity, empowering teachers, learners as well in schools, to ensure that they give their best. So resources are there, but now the distribution of the resources is what really that matters. And now we come in as organizations, for example, people with disabilities. We lobby and advocate for, timely and um, good resources to trickle down to all levels of say government and all levels of the community. And of course, I can say that there are gaps or there are challenges when it comes to implementation of the same, because governments also will do their own prioritization. So they'll see, oh, this money is we need to put in health sector, we need to put in education, and a certain amount we need to put in, for example, infrastructure. We really do that, advocate. And also in Kenya, we ratified the UNCRPD, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. and really it's really helping us because once ratified, it forms part of the Kenyan law. So we usually have this reporting mechanism where our country, for example, says that this is what we have done in terms of the inclusion of people with disabilities. This is the resources that we have allocated. In terms of monitoring and evaluation, we see, yeah, we have done this, but we can do more. This year we have allocated these types of budgetary allocation. The next year we are going to increase by, you know, and it has really worked. For example, in education, we it was not before it just never used to happen. Right now, any child, any learner in primary school gets, and even high school, if you're not able to, your parents or your family members are not able to, take care of you, they don't have they're not well up in terms of resources, the government now takes that up. So learners are educated, they go through education and they're paid for by the government. So I can say that is a step, that is a good step, and we are moving somewhere. We are moving somewhere, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, if you're moving in the right direction, you're moving in the right direction, and it is a slow and plodding process. Absolutely. And
Yes.
it is also very
Yeah.
slow and plodding here in the United States. As we like to say, one step forward, three steps back. That's how it
Mhm.
typically goes in society. So that's a pretty severe issue. Yeah. You also mentioned lobbying, lobbying, I know what it is, and in fact, I have interviewed a lobbyist on here on Aaron's Opinion. He lives in America, and he is elderly. He's an older man, so he doesn't participate in the social media nearly as much. But he is also very fascinating, and he was saying how controversial lobbying can be, how it's basically like acceptable bribery, and it's not really, there's some room to debate the ethical nature of lobbying. So yeah, that's really interesting. How does lobbying work in Kenyan society?
Honestly, probably the lobbying you're talking about is different because, okay, the lobbying that I'm talking about here in Kenya it does not involve any sort of, exchange of pleasantries or exchange of, the corruption, as you may say. um but it's just to pushing for the change. Like, for example, you take a bill to the parliament or legislation and tell members of parliament, please support this because this will go a long way to supporting your constituencies who are visually impaired or who are people with disabilities. So it's just to convince those who are, we call them the big fish, those who are in these big positions to, pass legislations that are more inclusive so that they can, be able to benefit. Because once everyone benefits, that means some of their constituencies, and they're representing them, would benefit. So it's just that matter of ensuring that you push by convincing. Why do we need this? For example, why, how, what are the benefits? What are the economic benefits? What am I going to benefit as a member of parliament, for example? You know, in
Absolutely.
terms of, yeah, in
Right.
terms of ensuring that the people with everyone, women with the people with disabilities benefit from the kind of legislation they're going to pass.
Absolutely. I mean, logically speaking, the benefit is if you create more jobs and if more people with disabilities are working in Kenya, then the economy improves a lot. I mean, people are always
Yes.
surprised to know,
Mhm.
and some people really don't really, some people really do not understand how important it might be to to create a job for a person with a disability, how much that would have a positive impact on the economy. I mean, that could be a huge impact on the economy to have people working and earning money. That's a huge issue and a huge thing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So when you advocate there in Kenya, what exactly do you do as a disability rights advocate? How does advocacy work, and what types of projects do you work on, and how do those projects work?
Um, let me just say something.
Sure.
As an advocate, I happened to have been nominated to represent people with disabilities in a county assembly. In Kenya, we have two governments. We have the national government and we have the county governments. Of course, that was born from the new constitution. So I happened to serve the county government as a nominated member of assembly. So coming to your question, um, I began my advocacy then, and most of my work was around ensuring that issues around disabilities are not left behind in terms of, for example, when laws are passed, how are these laws, going to ensure that people with disabilities enjoy their human rights, for example. In terms of education, how much resources is allocated within the county for learners, for example, with disabilities? What kind of budgetary allocation is given to people with disabilities and organizations of persons with disabilities, for example? So that was my work, was to do representation. I was representing the issues of people with disabilities. I was doing legislation, just to legislate and ensure that all other legislation conform with the CRPD, for example, and other laws. And also to ensure that the allocation of resources that do not, leave anyone behind in terms of ensuring that, everyone gets what they're supposed to get. Everyone gets the piece of the cake. So advocacy is a matter of talking, ensuring that people are well represented. And after I worked with the county assembly, I continued that because in Kenya we have public participation forums, for example, in the community level, where if a bill is supposed to be passed in parliament, they bring it to the community, to the people first, and the people would decide to add or subtract clauses or say this does not represent us, so in that aspect, I get in these forums and ensure that the bills are inclusive. Not just me, I am just speaking on my behalf, but we really have a vibrant team of advocates around Kenya that really ensure that all these bills, before they go to parliament, they are more inclusive and in all aspects. So as an advocate is not easy. It's not it's not a paying job. Actually, you get the satisfaction from the changes that you see. You feel like, wow, this is what we were pushing for, and this is happening now. It's just it feels good. So yeah, that's what I do.
That's really important. That's really, really important. And the reasoning behind Aaron's opinion was for a similar reason, is that I was listening to podcasts. My whole life has been I've been engrossed and fascinated by audio for my entire life. But I am also a teacher, as I may have mentioned. I forget what I've not told you, but I'm also a teacher. And back in 2020, during the pandemic, I was teaching just like I am now. And I noticed that a lot of the podcasts around the blindness space were not very receptive to my opinions. And as you can tell, I love to talk, talk and talk and talk and educate people.
Right.
So I wanted to create an environment where people like you can come up to my microphone and share your knowledge. And that's what we've been doing for the past 4 years. 4 years going strong here at Aaron's Opinion is connecting the world through the power of people speaking up, which is what you do. And I'm so glad that you do what you do, and I'm so glad that you are the advocate that you are, and that it will have a huge help in your country. In the future, people will look back and they will realize
Oh, thank
all the
you.
great things that you're doing. Yeah, yeah. Well, I have to say we do have our South Africa office of Aaron's opinion. Do you want me to open his microphone? You may have spoken to this person before or not, but do you want to let can we let Latabo ask a question because I'm sure he has a question for you over there.
No problem. Let him ask the
All right,
question.
let's see. Let's see. Now,
I
sometimes
appreciate.
his now be sometimes his audio and internet gets a little strange. So, um, all right, Latabo. I unmuted, so come on over and ask Angeline your question, and I'm sure you have a question. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if you guys can hear me because I'm in a
Perfectly,
different location.
perfectly.
Okay.
Better than I've ever heard you before. That's a perfect location.
Yeah, we can hear
Afternoon.
you.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. And well, well, oh God, I don't know what to say now. Um, okay, since I want to ask Angeline about like since she was talking about what do you call like advocacy when it comes to like in the African continent per se. So I just want to know from you, like in which organizations do you advocate especially for people with disabilities?
Oh, good question, and thank you. Um, yeah, I work with several organizations, of course, sometimes in doing consultancy work. Um, yeah, but there's this network of Kenya network of women with disabilities. It comprises of different women, different categories of disabilities. We have people who are deaf. They prefer being called deaf here in Kenya, and
Mm-hmm.
we have visually impaired. We have the psychosocial disability. We
Mm,
have visually impaired representation in all, in the network. So our work is to, advocate for issues around women and girls with disabilities. I also
mm,
am a member, of course, of the Kenya Society for the Blind, and the United Disabled Persons of Kenya, and the Kenya Union of the Blind. So I mean, various disability persons organizations. When
mm.
we call for meetings or champion for our own issues, we come together and do that. So I cannot say that I am limiting myself in one organizations. I'm in several organizations.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to ask just a follow-up question then. Because
Okay,
I'm also one of the person. I also represent an organization called Swan and Disability Foundation, in short, it's CF. So
awesome.
I'm also a youth chairperson. So yeah, okay. Enough
Oh,
about
nice.
me.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's good. It's
enough
good to
about
hear
me.
that. That's nice. I'm happy
No.
to, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Okay, enough about me.
I'm
So the
glad.
follow-up question is like since you were talking about like what you call the philosophical aspect of things, especially when it comes to like disability issues. Like, do
Mhm.
you guys like also hold events for people with disabilities so that the broader society could know about the effects on what disability people facing like day by day?
Yeah, we do. We do hold events. For example, we usually have the White Cane Day, where we,
Mm-hmm.
sensitize the community on the importance of the white cane, and how um, laws and infrastructure wise should be more accessible by all.
Mm,
We have this UN set dates where
mm,
wheelchair day, for example. We have cerebral palsy day. Those days are really, we use
mm,
them to create that awareness. And also, not just that, because we encourage our people with disabilities to not just concentrate on our days, but also
mm,
to, infiltrate these other days of where, for example, the Women's Day. How can we talk about our issues of women and girls with disabilities in the same
mm,
space?
mm,
How can we infiltrate other during Education Day? How can we even bring out our own issues of learners with disabilities in the same education day. So we encourage our members to infiltrate all these other spaces and ensure that we do not just talk about our issue in our own days, but also our issues cut across every other areas in life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really wonderful. It's really, really wonderful because the work that you're doing is a huge help to your country, and it's a huge and overall it's the right you're doing the right thing. And we see a lot of problems in society. And we at Aaron's Opinion, we celebrate people like you and of course Latabo and many of our other friends to whom later today
Mm.
you'll meet in the WhatsApp group. But we celebrate people who simply do the right thing, which is what you're doing. So
I celebrate Letabo too because from the look of things, the way he's talking, he looks like someone who has really done a lot in the community and the country he represents.
he
That's so nice.
absolutely
I'm
he
glad to hear
absolutely
from him.
has.
Yeah.
He's absolutely done a lot. He does a lot for the world, and he'll tell you more. He'll tell
Wow.
you more about it. Yes, and later today, I will simply send you a link to my WhatsApp group. We have a private community for all the guests of Aaron's Opinion, and you can certainly join it. I'll send you the link a little later.
Okay.
So, well, that's really fascinating. And by the way, where have you traveled to outside of Kenya? I'm sure you've done a lot of traveling.
Oh, I've traveled last year. I went to in November. I traveled to Uruguay for Data Festival. Um, I also got to be one of data values advocate. Last year, it was a contract for 1 year that we were talking about data, just ensuring that data that is collected is does reflect, everyone, the issues of the marginalized communities, for example, people with disabilities, women, and all that. So my work was to empower, educate the community, and um, ensure that, for example, organizations of persons with disabilities do collect citizen-generated data that reflects, everyone, from data collection to how it is shared, all that. Um, and so that was my work last year. And so we had a data festival in Uruguay. We went to Montevideo, then this other city where we did that 1 week conference. Then apart from Uruguay, went to Egypt, Sharm el Sheikh, and the UK. I was there for in 2010. Basically, those are the countries that I've visited: Uruguay, Egypt, and yeah, UK. Was supposed to come to US last year in this fellowship called Community Solutions Program, but unfortunately we had visa issues, so the Kenyans were not issued with visa. I don't know why. But yeah, so I was not able to join in, to come in the US, New York City. But those that came there really did a very good job. So it's a country that I'm hoping for, that I'll be able to visit pretty soon. Not just to visit, but also to network and learn how US people deal with issues around disability. What can I pick from there? How can I, bring in the changes from the US to Kenya, and also maybe sharing how we do what we do in Africa in the US. So those are the few countries that I've visited.
Well, that's really excellent. Yeah. And I mean, if when you come to the States, and eventually I'm sure you will, Angeline, you'll discover that the situation for people with disabilities in the States in some ways has some similarity to what you've already done and experienced there in Kenya, that there's still, even in the United States, there is still a huge need for people with disabilities to have advocacy and things like that. Yeah. So yeah. Um,
But in your advocacy, in the
mhm.
US advocacy, you don't talk of in the US, for example, you don't handle issues around stigma because everyone is, treated with dignity and all that.
Um,
Probably the challenge can
I
be something else different.
I agree with you for the most part that there's less stigma, but there's
Mhm.
still stigma in the United States. It's just less
Okay.
noticeable. There's still some
Ah,
stigma. It's not quite as profound as it is in Kenyan society. It's not as noticeable, but even in America, you would be surprised. You would be very interested to know and very surprised that we still have some pretty severe issues. Advocacy is needed even in the United States. We still need people like you to stand up for people and speak up.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, and I'm not at all offended by it or bothered by it. Um,
Mhm.
But I want to pause here because someone else, another friend from the community,
Mhm.
his name is Nolan, and he also is blind like us. And now he just raised his hand. So actually, Nolan, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on your microphone. Now now I don't know. He just joined, so I don't know how much you know. Uh, okay, got your hand there. Yeah. Okay, Nolan. So I'm sure you have a question for disability advocate Angeline from Kenya. So Nolan, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you so much for bringing me up to bringing me with you guys today. Um, I wonder. So, I'm not sure if I have a question or not, but I previously listened to the podcast episode with you guys having a talk about certain things, but I can't remember what it was exactly. But I just thought I would, chime in and say hello, and so thank you for having me.
Hi,
Well,
Nolan. Oh, it's good
you're very well. Well, Nolan,
you're
that's
very
fine.
welcome.
And you're very, very welcome. Yeah, yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, definitely, Nolan. If you joined and I at some point, if you're able, you may join my WhatsApp group. I know we've talked off air about that, but Nolan, since you came in, man, I'll definitely send you the video at some point in the episode.
Okay.
Certainly, Nolan, if you can send me a text off air and let me know that you want to see this episode, it will be a huge help and it will help me to remember
Okay.
to send it. So yeah, if you could send me something or just post on or even more noticeable actually if you could actually post on the Google groups because Angeline we do have an email list here at Aaron's Opinion. So Nolan actually later today go on over to the email list at Google groups and just write us an email over there and say that you want to see this episode and
Okay. I'll be happy to.
that would help me to
Awesome.
remember. So yeah, and
Also,
yeah, go
also,
ahead.
I have not met the previous guest that you had on, and I can't remember her name.
Well, I mean, are you speaking about my other live stream from a few days ago when I was speaking with someone in the evening in the States, that person?
Yes.
Right. You haven't met her yet. And I can tell you that there's some other stuff going on, Nolan. I can easily tell you off air.
Okay.
It's all fine, but
Mhm.
we're gonna have to say we can tell you off air. But yes,
Sure.
and of course there
Absolutely.
is the other thing that's misunderstood in the podcast space is there is a uh kind of a kind of a production line these podcasts go through, and I have to set them up and it's we're here. I mean for Angeline's world and of course Latabo, they're sitting there in the middle to late afternoon, and we're in the morning. So, and then you have
Right.
people listening all in between and behind and ahead. So it's all a matter of relativity, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, so I do have some so I have some big announcements to make. So I don't know if you saw this, but I actually made an announcement yesterday in Visioncast Network episode last night, and the episode should be published later today, hopefully. Um, we are starting for Nolan's Technology and More. I am going to be starting collecting. Rachel and I are going to be collecting some um, testimonies that we're going to be sharing, and it's going to be starting on March 31st, and that's when the episode will be published. And if you guys want to check that out, it will be on Nolan's Technology More and on Cloud 11 and Visioncast Network.
And
Um,
Angeline, you'll learn more
great,
about that.
great to hear.
Yeah. So Angeline, once
Mm.
I add you later today, once I add you to the group, you'll learn who all these people are. Nolan's not in it, but you'll easily be able to tell what he's talking about. So Nolan,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
All right.
I will be
Thank
posting.
you.
You're welcome. I will be getting the links from Rachel, and I will be posting those
Mm-hmm.
to the mailing list
Thank
today.
thank you, Nolan.
Awesome.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Nolan.
Awesome,
So
Aaron.
so back to Angeline for a second. So Angeline,
Sure.
I have another 10 minutes left today. Um,
Okay.
and Angeline, I'm sure that you have some questions for me, for Aaron Richmond and Aaron's opinion.
Uh-huh.
So, what are some questions? I'm sure you have questions that you want to ask me.
Wow. Yes, I have questions. First, please, what really drives you? Because I mean, you are a teacher or educator for that matter, and getting into this the podcast and enlightening, empowering people through interviews and all that. Really, there must be something that really drives you to doing what you
Hmm.
do. Ah, could you please share what really drives you? I'm sure it's
What?
not just COVID that that came in and you found yourself wow doing this and
Well,
wow.
I actually think in an
Mhm.
odd sense and in an odd way, I think
Uh-huh.
that there is some truth to the fact that
Uh-huh.
being stuck at home
Yeah.
during that time period with nothing to do but to
Uh-huh.
think helped me to
Mhm.
think. So, in a very odd
Wow.
way,
Yeah.
I think that there was some truth to the fact that probably if
Yes.
things had happened differently, maybe I wouldn't have created Aaron's opinion.
True.
But we're all apparently, after hearing
Mhm.
you and Latabo and Nolan and all these people in the community, I think we can all say that we're all together in this family now and glad that we created it for the variety
Yes.
of reasons that it was created. What
Mhm.
drives me though is that
Mhm.
talking to you has helped me to have a better day. It's helped me to feel better. I feel more
Mhm.
energized. I feel like I'm really accomplishing something. And I feel like when I learn from people who are more knowledgeable than me, like you, Angeline, and Latapo, and Nolan, and everybody around the community, that I feel better. It's it's almost like a medicine for me. Creating
Mhm.
content that you love and enjoy, that's like a medicine for
Right.
me and for the world. And I see that apparently
Mhm.
if we have to have
Mhm.
you in Kenya, Latabo in South Africa, and Nolan in the States, and everybody else watching, apparently we need to be doing this. Apparently, this is something that is needed in society, or else we wouldn't have
Um,
stayed around for 4 years, or else we wouldn't have gotten to this point where we are. So
mhm.
that's why I do it because and we know that Latavo knows what the I'll say it this time, Latavo. We know Latavo knows it, but we have a special slogan here at Aaron's Opinion. Our tagline or slogan: help one
Uh-huh.
person today, help 1 million people tomorrow. And that's what we're doing. Is that if I can help
Wow.
Angeline, then
Mhm.
Angeline can help 1 million other people. And that truly is true. And that's how doing the right thing works, and that's how I can tell this is the right thing to do. And that's how I know it's the right thing because it's helping you to help a million. And that
Wow.
truly makes all the difference in the world. So that's what my idea was. And then of course, I just love the art of podcasting. It's fun for me to create the episodes. It's fun for me to upload the videos. It's just very, very entertaining too. And it's very positive. And I love being able to gain, some sense of credibility in the community too. That's another thing, is to gain the responsibility. As I have more followers, as I have more of an impact, it's more of a
Mm.
responsibility, but then it's also more of a privilege. So that's really my opinion about it. What else do you want to know?
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you divide your work as an
Mhm.
educator and
Sure.
you, Aaron, as a podcaster? How do you
Easily.
divide that energy?
Easily. It's very funny. I've been an educator now for almost 9 years, and I've never told any of my students what I do outside of my education work that I
Mhm.
do, except for the fact that one of the students researched who I am and actually looked me up and actually
Oh.
started following the show and started following the And I was telling him, because this particular student, he's not blind, he's sighted. But I was telling him,
Oh.
so it's so funny. So I was saying, so like, why do how did you find out about what I do outside of my work? And he says, well, I was really, 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 really bored. So I just started Googling your name until I came up with all the information. So you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised what that Google thing can do. You can research
Yeah.
anybody, anywhere, anyhow, and figure out exactly what's going on with people.
I
That's
know.
how. And the other thing is, as you noticed with me, you noticed that
Oh.
I love being on schedule. That's another thing to teach people in life to be successful. You do
Uh-huh.
things, you follow your day's GPS like a compass. I knew before I went to bed last night, I knew what time I was getting up. I knew what I was eating for breakfast. I knew that I would drink coffee. I knew I would talk to Angeline. Then I know that in about another hour and a half, I'm going to talk to two other students. Then I know about 3 hours that I'm going to have lunch, then talk to more students, then maybe work out, then talk to another student, then eat dinner, then go over to Discord and try to solve problems over there. That's how a schedule works, so that you know what you're doing around the clock. You have to be on schedule. You have to be on schedule. You have to be on schedule. It would be impossible to be a podcaster without doing
Uh-huh.
things when you need to do them. And that is a huge thing in life. I would not have gotten the podcast to this point if I didn't say, you need to come to my Zoom meeting on time. And you understood and you listened. And now the
Yeah.
whole world benefits, because you have to be on schedule.
That's my weakness. I'm learning from you. You have said this 4 times for me. Now I have
Well,
to work on
listen.
being
Well,
on
listen to
schedule.
me.
Thank you. I've picked that from you
I
today.
was quite frankly, I could tell based on how
Thank
you were
you.
interacting before that you weren't going to have a problem coming on time. Um, but a lot of people around the world have a hard time with schedule. I know people, in my own life who don't do things on schedule, and I wonder, well, how do you get anything done? How do you know how to do anything? If you don't have a
Mm.
day and a time and a place, you have to be really sensitive to it now. And now that we live in
Mm.
this global community, we have to be more
Mhm.
strict about schedule. In the 90s, when I was a little boy growing up, this
Mhm.
conversation would have never happened. This would have been a science
Sure.
fiction movie,
Mm.
we wouldn't have made the connections, but now we're able to, and now we're forever grateful for it. So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Wow.
okay. All right. Well, I gotta tell you, do you have any more questions, or the thing that I typically the thing that I like to say is, so Angeline, we're starting to come to the close now of a absolutely magnificent conversation. So one more question. If you can ask me now only one more question to really make me sweat, to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster. I know you can do this. What do you really want to ask Aaron Richmond and Aaron's opinion?
Ah, oh my goodness. You got me off guard.
Really?
Um,
I thought I had you on guard for the whole hour. Really? Now you're off?
I'm off the questions. I'm looking for the toughest question, the question that will make you sweat for the day. But anyway, yeah, I don't have any question, but really, I'm very glad and elated by
Okay.
what you do. And really, what I can just say is continue doing what you do. I mean, and it's not benefiting just you. I'm sure a lot of people globally and the galaxy, as you would always say, will really benefit. Not just people who are alive now, but the other generations to come will really benefit from this noble work that you are doing. So continue with the good work, and yeah, nothing more to
Wonderful.
say. I really appreciate you.
That's all you need to say. And we just want to
I'm
say
very glad to be part of
welcome.
this
You are
conversation.
you are forever part of the Aaron's Opinion family, and that's a forever promise. That's a promise I will keep. So, by the way, though,
Yeah.
if
Mm-hmm.
someone wants to get in touch with Angeline Akai from anywhere across
Uh,
the universe and galaxy, how could you be reached?
I could be reached. I'm on Twitter at Akai Angeline, Facebook Angeline Akai, LinkedIn Angeline Akai, and yeah, Instagram. Those things. I'm just in these social media platforms. But if you Google Angeline Akai, a whole lot of other information will come will come on board. So you'll get
That's true.
to
Just
know
Google.
what I
That's
have
true.
done in the past.
We should just say,
Yeah.
you listeners out there, you guys have Google.
Yeah,
If you want
yeah,
to find out who it is,
Google
Google her.
Angeline.
Start
Yeah,
figuring
Google
it out.
Angeline Akai. Everything else will pop
Yeah,
will
but
pop up.
yeah, but you should be afraid of that because you never know what will pop up. That's the scary part. Everything will pop up. That's the scary
Yeah,
part.
that's yeah, true.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Well, look, Angeline, I wish
Yeah.
you a blessed and safe and healthy and happy day over there in Kenya. We'll talk soon. Letabo,
Thank you
South
very
Africa,
much.
man, South Africa office. Thanks for joining us. Nolan, thanks for joining us. All right, everybody. Well, that is basically, let's see here. Okay. Yeah, there we are. All right. Well, this is where I want to end the episode. I just wanted to say, everyone who joined, thank you so much. We'll be back soon. Have a good day, everybody. And as we say here at Aaron's Opinion, help one person a day, help 1 million people,
Million.
people tomorrow. If you're still surviving on YouTube, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Tickle the bell notification to know when we go live next at Aaron's Opinion. Like the video, comment below, and share the video with a friend. It might really help us out, and it might help someone else find Aaron's Opinion. All right, everybody. That's all I have today. Angeline, thank you so much. And we will certainly be in touch later today. Thank you, everybody. I wish you all a safe, healthy, and happy day from anywhere in the universe where you are. Take care, everybody. We will be back